Hi, I'm Jenny Monarch McGuire, and I am the Extension Educator with 4-H Youth Development here in DuBois County. And I'm going to present a volunteer training session all about meaningful meetups and how to run effective 4-H club meetings. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is club management, which is very critical in the running of a 4-H club meeting. So what does effective club management look like? Well, effective club management will result in quality youth experiences in 4-H clubs. So if a club is being effectively run, then youth are going to get a better experience out of it. And it will include specific components, which we will get into, that are put in place by volunteers who are working together. That is very critical, that volunteers who are running a club together work together. As you've seen times before, you can always tell when a group is less effective if they're not working effectively together. The presentations don't look as good. There's just lots of things you can tell something's going wrong because the volunteers aren't working together. So that's going to be very important to make sure you have a good arrangement with the other volunteers who are running the club with you. So what are the components of effective club management? Well, for a meeting, there is a balance between business, education, and recreation. So those are elements that really should be part of all meetings, or the base of most meetings. You might have some meetings where maybe you have a special guest, so you might maybe skip your business meeting that time because they need the whole time to do their presentation. Or you might have some where you just decide to have a fun meeting that is full of entirely recreation. That's okay, as long as the majority of your meetings include a balance of business, education, and recreation. Structure is going to be a very important part of the club meeting and the club management of that meeting. So it's going to be important to think about the type and scope of the projects you're focusing on in your meetings or other learning experiences, your membership size. So sometimes I know like some clubs are either have too many members or they don't have enough, and it really affects what you can do in a club meeting. So that's going to be an important factor and something to consider moving forward when it comes to recruitment. What would be the best strategy if you need more kids in your club, or maybe you need to merge clubs with another club, something to make a more manageable club size, or try and find ways to get more people to attend your club meetings if you don't have enough. The Constitution and bylaws. So every club, despite what some people maybe are knowledgeable about, has its own constitution and should have some sort of general laws that it operates by. I definitely have all of the constitutions in the office. If you're not sure what your constitution states, I can definitely send that to you so you're aware. And it's important to make sure that kids understand what that purpose of those things are and why we need to abide by them. And then membership. As I mentioned a little bit before, this is going to be critical with promotion, recruitment, enrollment, and re-enrollment. Is to try and follow up with your members, communicate effectively with your members, recruit new members, and promote your club whenever possible. Our enrollment window lasts from October 1st till January 15th. However, youth can enroll in our program after January 15th. They can even technically enroll in the summer. Now, there are things that they miss if they do that. So it's going to be important to try and get them in during our enrollment window. But you can always be promoting your club at all times. So if there's events that you see, open houses, anything that you think, hey, maybe could 4-H be a part of it? Feel free to ask about it to see if 4-H can be involved. Let us know in the office if 4-H can be involved so that we can maybe start being incorporated in some of those things, and maybe that could be a reoccurring event moving forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be you present at that, but you're going to be the one who is more likely going to know about what's going on in the local communities, especially for the local club leaders, than necessarily me. Since I do not necessarily live in Celestine, it might make sense for Celestine people to know more about what's going on in Celestine and where they might be able to recruit kids for 4-H. What's going to be really important to remember as a 4 H club leader or any volunteer is that because we are 4 H is funded through Purdue Extension, a land grant institution, which is also part of the federal government. We are subject to follow federal government guidelines, which means that we have to follow all civil rights laws. What that means is that we cannot discriminate against anybody in our programming. Basically, if the kid meets our age guidelines of K through 12 as of January 1st of that year, then they are allowed to join our clubs, and anyone can join any club. We cannot be discriminating. If there's issues that you have, then you need to bring that to our office of why maybe someone shouldn't join your club. But under normal circumstances, this is not to happen, and we need to allow everyone to be a part of our programming. As you can see on the slide, it says make all reasonable effort to reach out to underrepresented groups. So just because people maybe not like you or might be a little bit more difficult to accommodate, we have to make every reasonable effort to do so. One of the ways we can do that, and I can discuss this a little bit more, is kind of on the guidelines of universal design for learning. And what that is every club meeting should be designed for every child. So we should pretend that all the kids are going to be there with any disadvantage or representation, and we need to accommodate all of them at all times if we can. That sounds very overwhelming, but there are simple things that we can do to move in that direction. So club meetings. So we're going to go over the real the outline and layout of what a club meeting should look like. Like I said before, this can be flexible depending on your schedule and when you're meeting and like the time you have and who your members are. So this is a suggested meeting format. So you're really, each 4-H club meeting, as I mentioned before, should have 3 parts. It should have recreation, which you can decide. You can kind of see how your club works and whether that is better in the beginning, the middle, or the end. Sometimes if you're going to have a longer business meeting, it might be better to break it up and have that recreation in the middle, or it might be better to have it at the beginning, or sometimes it is easier to have it at the end. It just kind of depends the structure of your particular meeting. As you can see, the project activity should be making up a majority of your meeting time, and not the business portion of your meeting. This is obviously going to change a little bit depending on what type of club you have. So junior leaders, the business meeting might run a little longer than some of these other factors just because of the nature of that club. Shooting sports, for example, the project activity is probably going to be most of the meeting. I know in robotics, we don't usually have much of a business meeting. The focus is the project activity, but this is a model to shoot for. And if you can have a business meeting component, then that would be a good thing to strive for. Also, it's important to think about with the length of your meeting. So I know there are some leaders out there who are running mini 4-H clubs, which are clubs that just have kids in K through 2. It's probably going to be better to stick with a shorter meeting time because those kids will have a shorter attention span naturally. And with older club members, or maybe the county-based clubs or project-based clubs, you might need more time and go up to a two-hour club meeting. So those are things that are going to be important to think about. So what are some examples of this project activity, which is what's supposed to be taking up a majority of your time? Demonstrations are a great thing to include. I know some clubs are already doing that quite a lot. Now, I know sometimes it's a big struggle to get the youth to want to lead these demonstrations. So do everything you can to encourage that. You can even have like what we do sort of at the fair for robotics demonstrations is make it a station format where multiple youth are leading demonstrations at the same time. And that way it's not so much focused on just one person and all eyes on them. I know it's been much easier for us to recruit kids to do demonstrations when it's in a station format versus the, public speaking demonstration contest where all eyes are on one person the whole time. However, both types of demonstrations are going to be valuable experiences and provide those public speaking skills and interactive skills that are going to be really important. A project fair might even be an option. Have all the kids bring in a successful project they've done and talk about those projects. I know lots of people who brought guests in. I know the Sewing Guild came this year to one of the club meetings and was very willing to come. Um, I'm also very willing to come to meetings and teach, especially about makers, but any other things that you would like to do a demonstration on. Just to have a guest in the room, I'd be more than willing to come and do that. I know there are lots of projects out there that have simple introductory activities. Tin Punch is a great one. We have pie pans in the office that you can do simple and demonstrations for that won't take longer than a club meeting to do. There are lots of examples. If you need more examples of what this should look like, you can always feel free to contact the office for those resources. So something that is going to be really important to keep in mind, and this is something I like to live by, and it's 10-minute rule. Most people can only focus on something for 10 minutes, if that. So as you can see by this chart, that people will gradually lose focus after 10 minutes. So every 10 minutes, you need to re-engage their attention. So be thinking about that in a club meeting, especially during the business meeting part where they're not doing things that are hands-on. Maybe take a break or have somebody else speak or make them stand up and do jumping jacks and then sit back down. Something to re-engage their attention every 10 minutes is going to be important to make sure that they're listening and paying attention and still engaged in your club meeting. Another thing that's going to be really important with the way we run things in 4-H club meetings is something that we like to try to do is the experiential learning model. So this is what we use in 4-H really always. And what you basically, as you can see here, the first step is the experience. So if you're showing kids how to do something, sometimes it's better to let them experiment first. Get their hands on it, try and figure it out. And then 2, you ask them questions about what was that like? How did you do it? Did anyone have success? Did anyone fail? And they share about that. Then you process, why do you think that happened? Things like that. Then you can generalize it and make it apply it to more other things in life or other projects or other things in 4-H that it could be applied to. So this is the model that club leaders should really try to use when they're running their club meetings and their project-based activities. The other thing that is really going to help the structure of a meeting is to use parliamentary procedure. Obviously, this is going to be different depending on the type of club you have and the audience. But for those traditional club meetings where you have older kids who are leading the meetings, parliamentary procedure is going to be a good thing to try and put in place. Younger kids, might not be familiar, so this is your chance to teach them. What are the benefits of parliamentary procedure? Well, you can see those in front on the screen there, and it is to give every member a chance to be heard, to allow everyone to participate, to establish and maintain order in a meeting, which is probably very crucial, especially if you have some people who are talkative and things like that who always want to speak and take over. Having parliamentary procedure can help with that. And also to prevent confusion when discussing meetings. This is also going to be helpful for your secretaries so they know what motion was made and when to write things down, because it can be very overwhelming if you're a new secretary trying to keep minutes and take notes of every little detail. And then also just to keep the meeting moving, especially with some of our adult meetings. A lot of times people like to just keep talking and explaining. But this will help, by making motions and reel everyone back in. So by doing it with the 4-H club meetings, it's going to be good practice for when they get older. Maybe they join the 4-H council, or maybe they join livestock committees where they have to use this, and now they're going to know it. And it's going to be very helpful all around for everyone to be knowledgeable of this when they run meetings in the future. So that is most of all of the information I had to share during this training session. I do have lots of handouts that could be helpful and add to this that you could take home and look at when you're planning your club meetings for the future. As you can see, I have lots of information about conducting a club meeting, a meeting checklist. So that's going to be things to check off before you do your meeting. So you know that you have what you need. Ways to divide up responsibility, techniques for managing children's behavior. Behavior management is one of the hardest things, but yet the most important things when you're doing activities with kids. So that is definitely a good one to look at. Roll call ideas. If you're not familiar with parliamentary procedure, I have activities to do with it, ways to teach it. There are lots of games and recreation things I also have that I'd be happy to share. So feel free to email me if you'd like any of these handouts. I can send you all of them, or I can just send you one or two. Just let me know what you like, and I'd be happy to help out. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope you learned something from this presentation.